Okay, here we go. Hey, good morning, tribe. Had a little bit of problem starting the Facebook Live here. It wasn't starting, but hope you guys are having a great week. It's been a really busy week on our end. Sorry and apologies for yesterday's rescheduling. We're going through what are we going through? We're going through best workplace nominations, so it's kind of been taking up my time. So what they're doing is they're going through surveys. They're surveying our employee base. They're looking at their benefits. They're looking about our culture. So that's what's been going on with us. Let me pop up the questions so we can go ahead and get straight at it. I got 4 good questions here. Christine Costa asked, "Hi Paul, could you say something about co-founder agreements, like how to determine who should own which share of the company? Maybe taking into account external investments would be needed." So Christine, here's my first suggestion: get a lawyer, find an attorney, so you can sit down between 2 partners and make sure that everything that you are documenting is legal and airtight. So first get an attorney. As far as everything else, co-founder agreements, it really depends. I mean, that's kind of an open-ended questions. You can look at it as how much equity one person is going to bring, as far as investments, as far as cash, what roles people are going to be doing in the company. So it really depends. You guys, as partners, it's what it is you have to sit down and really designate who's doing what, who's going to be taking the lead, who's the CEO, or who's the head of it, or who's going to be doing the operations or what have you, who's going to be bringing the money to the table. And then from there, you can kind of decide what percentage is what person going to have versus the other person. However, the best thing I'm going to suggest is get an attorney so you can document everything and make sure that when it is signed, an attorney's looking at it. What you don't want to do is kind of try to do this haphazardly and get together and just kind of write it on your own. Next question is Edwin. Paul, I'm buying a convenience store. Any pointers of what to look for when analyzing the deal or purchase? See if the convenience store is making money. I mean, that's probably what you want to do. You don't want to go in there and buy something that's eventually going to lose a whole bunch of money for you. I would look at their finances. I'd look about 3 or 4 years, see what they're trending as far as what their profitability is, how much it costs to run the store. That's really important. What kind of overhead do they have? What kind of employee base that they have? That's what I'd be looking at. Really what I look at is is it making money? Are you making money on a monthly basis? What kind of vendors you have? I look at all those things. It's really hard to diagnose, but you really have to kind of scrutinize all of their business for the last 2-3 years and make sure that everything is running correctly. What's problematic within the company? What's problematic within the convenience store? How are their supplier relations going? I mean, I've never run a convenience store, but the first things that I would look at is, what's my supplier base like? Are they? I guess if I'm buying, things for the store, how much does that cost? Is it rising up in cost? That's what I would look for. Next question, Patricia Burgess. When developing training materials, what do you find to be the best approach and why? So she says, start with detailed instructions and then create higher level summary reviews. Start with higher level summary reviews and then drill into detailed instructions. What I do normally when I'm doing training like this, or when I'm doing some kind of curriculum, is that one, I do a high level overview of what we're trying to complete from start to finish, right? And then after that, I'd have sections. So each section has some kind of module that I'm being trained, like if it's sales, if it's a pitch to a client, if it's a follow-up to a client, if it's the close or what have you. So what I would do is have a high level overview of what you're trying to complete from the beginning to the end. And then after that, you'll have the modules, right? So you'll have what you're going to be doing first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and so on. And then within those modules or within those verticals, you want to be very detailed from start to finish, very, very detailed on what you're trying to complete at each module. After each module, I would have that high-level summary because you want to make sure that when you are teaching these in-depth processes, that they're learning what you want them to learn, right? And then after that, so again, you start overview the whole entire training process, go into verticals or modules, get really detailed into those verticals or modules. After the vertical or module, then make sure that you review that and make sure that they're learning what they need to learn, or they're accomplishing the task that they need to learn. And then at the end of the whole entire training, you want to recap the whole entire thing, right? So what you're really doing is you're previewing it like a movie trailer. You're previewing it, you get into the movie, really watch it, and then you kind of just talk about it at the end and make sure that everybody's on the same page. That's what I would do with that, and that's what I find the most effective. Heather Harvey, this is the last question here. So, hi, I recently lost most of my staff, so I'm starting with a fresh slate. I'm torn between feeling like my hands are tied since I physically cannot do all the work myself, and I need help, and wanting to set correct boundaries from the get-go. How do I do this? My job is a pet groomer, and it's very physically demanding with high burnout rate and high turnover rate as well. But I stay booked months in advance. Also, I read books on management and leadership, but it is not a strong point, and I feel like there's a lack of respect for my employees and honesty. I just turn over most of these issues because I'm too busy to deal with it, and I don't want to do it. So let me just leave it as that. I'm too busy to deal with it, and I don't want to do it. Well, there is going to be your biggest problem, Heather. If you are not willing to deal with your staff or your business, then it's kind of a lost cause. I mean, you start a business because, you cannot start a business if you don't want to deal with every single aspect of the business. There's times where I don't want to take out the trash. But I'm still going to do it. There's times that I don't want to talk to a disgruntled or an unhappy employee, but I still have to do it. When I look at a business, especially when I started, when it was in its infancy, that was my baby. It's just like me when I had my child. I had to raise that, and I had to do every aspect of it. Just because I don't want to change diapers doesn't mean I'm not going to do it. It's part of the journey, and part of the journey, part of the rewards, and part of the struggle of being an entrepreneur is that is your baby. So if you don't want to have any, especially at your stage of the game where it seems like you're still very hands-on, and there's still a lot. It seems like it's still in its infancy. You have to be part of everything. There's no way around it. You can't say I'm too busy for this, I'm too busy for that. It's just you have to be part of it. I don't know how to say that more clearly. You just have to be part of it. You got to do the things that you hate, and you got to do the things that you love. As far as people, if you want to scale it, you got to get better with people. You have to be able to build relationships. What I'm seeing on maybe like a subjective level is that you're so irritated, or you're so hurt, or you're so resentful or what have you, you don't want to engage with them. So when you do that, what happens is you have this automatic underlying belief when you talk to people. So it's this weird subjective communication. So that's something that you might want to check, is that when you're talking to somebody and if you think about this, if you're talking to somebody and you're already kind of in the back of your mind thinking like, oh man, this is going to be worthless, that's what you're going to convey. So that you might need to kind of check what you're saying to people, or the underlying communication to them. That's the first thing that I would do. Now I'm going to make it really simple on what you can do. Unless you want to really engage with these people, try to grow them, because as a leader, your responsibility is to grow your staff. Is to build your staff, and to also explain your culture, and to sell them your culture, and to sell them your dream. When you can do that, then all of a sudden you're going to have people start following you in the direction that you want to go. However, if you want to do that, it's going to take a lot of time, right? Culture and companies aren't built overnight, and it takes a lot of time to do that. It takes a lot of effort. Now, if that's not your speed and you don't want to do that, here's my suggestion for you. Back down all of your clients so you can manage it by yourself, right? So you got two choices here. You either go all the way in, handle all those things that you don't like to do, take a lot of time with the people that you're bringing on, really find a robust training program, seek other mentors to figure out what you can do to train these guys. You got to go all in, or you just back down. You back down, bring your client base really, really low, where you're going to be able to handle what you need to handle from an individual standpoint. from 8 hours a day or what have you. So hopefully that works. Again, Heather, it really does start with you. And this is for the whole entire tribe. If you're going to do any kind of business, you have to understand that you have to be 110% in to make it succeed. And all those things are super duper important. You just got to do the things that you don't want to do. I think I got a few questions coming up, so I'm going to try to answer this here right now. Let me just go back. Let's see. Paul, can you touch more on scaling up, please? I'm assuming you're scaling up on staff. Here's my suggestion on scaling up on staff. So I'll touch upon that. I don't know if you're asking for scaling up on sales or what have you, but let's touch about scaling up on staff. Before you start to scale up on staff, again, you have to understand, the first thing that you need to do is be able to convey your culture, right? I think what you want to do is make sure that you attract the right people and the people that are going to adhere and the people that are going to be most succinct with your culture. So that culture, what you stand for, your core values, is it a fun place, work environment? Is it a serious work environment? Is it creative? Is it innovative? Or is it a structured? All those things, those core values, what your company stands for is incredibly important to understand from a cultural perspective, because that's the foot you're going to be leading in when you're going to be telling your employees or your potential employees or your applicants on what your company is about, right? Because a lot of times what you do is when you're going out to look for talent for your company is that you want to make sure that you can offer them a culture that's going to fit with them, right? The last thing that you want to do is have a bad pairing. It's like a bad relationship. You want to make sure that if you're in a bad relationship, I think everybody in this tribe has been in one bad relationship, regardless if it's a friend or it's a coworker or what have you. You don't want that in your company. So you want to make sure that you understand what you're looking for from a cultural perspective. Now, as far as scaling up after that, from a technical or a logistical standpoint, you want to make sure that you define what position. So if it's a certain position, if it's sales position, you define what exactly the roles and responsibilities are in the company and what the roles and responsibilities are in their job function. And then once you're able to do that, you want to make sure you can train on that. So before you start scaling up, you want to make sure that when you're bringing someone on, you can properly train them. The last thing that you want to do is define your culture and have this incredible, innovative culture, bring them in and let them just throw them in the pool and not know what they're going to do. The chances of failure is really high. So what you want to make sure is have a training program or have a defined systematic way to train them on what they're supposed to be doing as a job function. That's what I would do from scaling out a company. Now, from a training standpoint, that's what I would do. Now, that it doesn't stop there after you train them. It takes a lot of hand holding for a little bit of time. Sometimes people take a little bit of time to, I'll share with you my staff. There's some staff that have experience. They come in, you train them on the processes, you train them on the system, but for the most part, they know exactly what they're doing. Then they go out and start selling, or they go out and start closing deals, or they go out and start fixing our IT systems or what have you. They have that experience. But if they don't have that experience, then you really got to handhold them and make sure that they understand it and they're actually replicating the results that you want them to replicate. Hopefully that answers that question. Let's see. I'm waiting on. I have some more questions here. One sec. I'm waiting to get a small business marketing up online, but I'm not quite in full inventory to take orders. What do you think of opening soon versus exact opening date? Anna, is this okay? It's an online business, and you're not quite full in inventory yet. What do you think? This isn't my expertise, but this is what I would probably do. I like that opening soon idea. I think if you can, from an online perspective, maybe if you could start generating buzz on your website or what products you have to offer, then I think you'll create more demand once you do have the inventory to pop up. I think it's like, I just used the movie example just a little while ago, and when they talk about trailers, I mean, that's kind of maybe what I would see is that you generate that buzz before it opens, like any kind of physical like restaurant or any kind of physical store. They start flyering the whole entire neighborhood and saying, hey, we're going to be opening pretty soon. Come and to our grand opening. I would do that opening soon thing, and then basically I would try to generate a buzz from an online standpoint. It's probably a question that you might want to ask Peter, but I would try to generate a buzz before you open. Brandon, during your beginning years, fighting through debt and starting up challenges, how did you get through your truly down days? What did you do outside of your business to stay motivated? Finally, do you believe in using a full-time job to build a business part-time that you turn it into a full-time business, or can that full-time job actually become a distraction? So let me answer your first question, Brandon. How did I get through it? I was just on a podcast and they asked me about this. I mean, at the end of the day, what it really was I had a family that I needed to put a roof over her head. And for me, just failure wasn't really an option. I mean, I looked at the two choices. Either I don't get myself out of the hole, out of the debt that I was in, or out of the crisis that I was in, or or sit in that situation, or make my life better. And I chose to make my life better, and I did it at all cost. The full-time job. So. I actually built my business with a full-time job. It could be done. I think there's different schools of thought here. From some people that I talk about, they say, hey, you're never going to survive if you don't go all in. Okay. But there's tons and tons and tons of examples that people have worked a full-time job and worked on their business part-time as they're trying to build it. So for me, I was working a full-time job when I started my company. So I don't think it's a distraction. I think it's maybe more of an internal thing. I think if you're absolutely diligent at making your business work, then it's going to happen regardless if you're working at part-time and you're working a full-time job or you're jumping all in. Now, for me, and I'll just give you my opinion, I needed to cover my cost, right? I think it becomes very stressful if you're not covering your cost, or how are you supposed to grow your business when you don't know where you're going to live, or if the electric is going to be turned off, or you don't have benefits, or you can't buy groceries? For me, I think that's more stressful than starting a business. So, I guess it really depends. For me, I started my company working full time, and I just worked 20 hours a day basically. I didn't really get any sleep. So I think it'll be a distraction if you make it a distraction. Is I guess what I'm saying. Okay, so looks like that's it. Hey, thanks for all the great questions here. Feel free to, I'll be on live it's looking like Saturdays are a good day for me in the morning. Weekdays during the week is really, really busy, but I do enjoy spending a lot of time with you guys. I do enjoy answering your questions. I'm hoping that they're very helpful for you. Keep asking the questions for me. I'll answer it. I'll answer it as best as I can, and I hope you gain something out of it. So other than that, have a great week. We will see you next week. See you guys.